This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
It's been such a learning experience because, when you're dealing with drugs and alcohol and all those sort of things and the behaviors that come with that, it's been hard because when I was younger, I would cop it. I would cop sometimes abuse or the heat. But now as I've gotten older, I've learned to put a pretty solid line in the sand. If you come up to me and you're aggressive in any sort of way, I'll just stop the music and walk out.
Welcome to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. I'm your host, Maritza Barone. Get ready to hear moments that will help you to see the world differently and inspire you to become the happiest, healthiest, and kindest version of you. Hello, welcome back. Today on Things You Can't Unhear, I have invited a guest onto the show that comes from a line of work we haven't seen on the podcast before. Claire Elliott is one of the world's most in-demand and trusted female DJs. Claire and I met several years ago. She was flown out to Fiji to DJ at an electrifying party on the sands of the Fijian shore. And to me, her life looked and sounded like so many others would only ever dream of. Because ultimately, she got to fly around the world to parties and special events to make everyone happy and do what she loves. And that's living the dream, really, isn't it? And she also happens to be really great at her job. I wanted to chat to her today on the podcast so we could get a glimpse into what else is possible when we look outside the traditional career pathways, and also explore what it's like to be in the music industry at this level and as a female pioneer in her field. We explore her journey to where she's gotten to today, the highs and the lows of the industry as a whole. We chat about some common misconceptions about the DJ world and also Claire as a person, and so much more. I love Claire and all her good vibes, and I know you'll enjoy this chat. And if you're listening now, please pause, hit subscribe. It means the world to us to get subscribers on this podcast, not only on the podcast, but also on YouTube. We've got so many new live events coming up, and you'll be able to watch them on the YouTube channel. So please head over there and subscribe to that also. All the links are in the show notes. Welcome, DJ Claire Elliott, to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You're definitely the first DJ that we've had on the show, and I'm super excited to welcome you on as the first female DJ as well.
Yes, go the girls. I'm it's a privilege to sort of represent the girls in the industry. So I'm glad to be your first DJ.
Well, definitely want to jump into that a bit later on, because I think it is so important to explore what it feels like to be a female in a male-dominated industry. But let's start off. Tell me where you're joining us from. Where do you live these days? Or are you just one of those residents of the world because you travel so much?
Yeah, pretty much at this point, because I travel, like, as you said, all around the world, but I'm based in Sydney, born in Tassie, and then I was in Melbourne for 10 years. I think that's when we first met. Yeah. And then now in Sydney. So slowly making my way up to Australia, probably retire in Queensland, I think.
Yeah, way up the country.
Up Australia, yeah.
So just go the warmer as it gets.
That's it.
I love that. So what is your life like? How do you even explain what it's like to be one of the world's leading female DJs and get to travel the world and play music at incredible events and meet new people all the time? How would you even describe the feeling of your life? Do you still pinch yourself sometimes at what you actually do for a living?
Definitely. Very grateful. I know that word sometimes is a bit overused, but definitely very grateful for the life I lead. But it's been a journey. It's been something that, I love music so much, and I always knew I wanted a career in music. So to forge it out and see it evolve as the years have gone on, it's been, amazing. And I've always just had a growth mindset of where can I push this? Where can I go next? What can I do? Keep it fresh. I think that's the secret to life, having something to look forward to. And, I've just kept on growing from Tasmania to Melbourne to Australia, and now going overseas. It's just, something that keeps on evolving into something bigger. And I'm grateful that the opportunities keep on presenting themselves.
I don't think grateful is ever overused. I think we should be grateful for literally everything. I'm
Yeah,
like one of those, I'm like one of those people that pays for my groceries, and in my head, I'm like, thank you.
exactly. I think, I'm always like, never take it for granted because it can go away at any time, So, yeah.
Totally. So, what type of upbringing did you have? Do you have a musical family, or are you like the pioneer of the family that's in this scene?
No, I have a very musical family. So, my mum's a singer. My brother isn't a musician, but he's a TV producer. My auntie on my dad's side is a French hornist and was in the Tasmanian Symphony Orchestra. So we definitely have music all around us. Mum still performs to this day. So we're definitely a creative family.
Oh, you're one of those cool families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes, we're crazy.
That is
Crazy.
so good.
But
So
yeah,
I remember reading Matthew McConaughey's book, and he
yeah.
walked up to his dad and he's like, "Dad, I want to be an actor." And his dad's like, "Well, if you're going to be an actor, you better be the best damn actor that there ever was."
Mhm.
What did your family say when you're like, "Hey guys, I'm going to be a DJ"?
They loved it, and then
Yeah.
no pushback, nothing at all. And there was never, and that's something I'm really blessed with my family. They've always never really, they've always been 100% behind me and will like go for it. Sometimes it's been like, do you want a plan B? Because it has got hard over the years. And sometimes I've gone to them going, what am I doing? And they're like, well, you could always pivot careers. But they've always been supportive. And there was never, I actually got a scholarship to go to, I was trying to be a psychologist in year 11 and 12. And I got the points and I got a scholarship and I gave it up to follow my dreams in DJing. So it goes to and they supported that 100%. So it just goes to show how supportive they were.
So what path did you actually take to, like, you've actually become one of the top female DJs, which is pretty cool. When you think back to the early days of like, okay, this is what I want to do,
Mm.
and do I just want to be a normal DJ, or do I want to take it to the skies and beyond? What was the pathway to like from starting to sort of where you are now?
Well, I was at my friend's birthday and I was just 18, I think. And I just made a beeline to the DJ up in my local nightclub in Tasmania. And I said, I want to be a DJ. And his name was Kevin. He's an amazing fellow. And he's, had so much experience. He's like, yep, come in and I'll train you. And I'll see if you have what it takes. And I did. And I sort of got my training ground in Tasmania for 2 years. And then I moved to Melbourne. And the training was in clubs to start with. I started in clubs on record vinyls and on CDJs. And then I moved to Melbourne and I got more into the corporate scene with a guy called Nick Rutherford who trained me up there. And then from there, it's just sort of snowballed into bigger events and then going, around Australia. And now it's gone into something overseas. But that's basically where it started. But I was predominantly based in Tasmania and Melbourne for 11, 12 years of my career, just finding my feet there.
And have you found like you've had this like the biggest pinch me moment when you're like playing for a group of people and they're just like having the best time and the vibe is high and you standing there and you're like, what is
Yeah,
life? Like what's been your biggest pinch me moment?
there's been a few, to be honest. I mean, I always say to Mel and Blair, who had their beautiful wedding at Lake Como, that was incredible. That was one of the best sort of locations I've ever done, and a great party. Um, our friends too in Fiji as well. That's a pinch me moment as well. That's just such a beautiful location with beautiful people because it's like sometimes as a DJ you get flown to places when the party and the people aren't so nice. So it's beautiful when everything aligns. Like the party's great, the clients that you're working for are beautiful people, and that's a pinch me moment too. It's not just about certain things have to all align in one for a perfect gig. It needs to be musically great, the clients need to be beautiful people, and the location has to be somewhere kind of cool too, somewhere different. So if you can get all those things in a line, then you're like, that's a pinch me moment for me.
Yeah, just giving everyone context, you have DJ'd at my friend's beach house in Fiji 2 or 3 times, I think. They've flown
Yeah,
over and they're like, okay, we want the best Australian DJ to come over. And you've just rocked the party and just like
such a
made.
fun time. And they're such beautiful, beautiful souls. So it's like, that's what I mean when it's a pinch me moment, because it's like you're doing what you love in a beautiful location for beautiful people. So it's like that's what you kind of dream for as a
Yeah.
DJ. Because
Yeah.
yeah,
You touched on like the difficult times as well, because you probably can be up against some crap in this industry as well. How do you deal with that when it pops up?
it's been such a learning experience because when you're dealing with drugs and alcohol and all those sort of things and the behaviors that come with that, it's been hard because when I was younger, I would cop it. I would cop sometimes abuse or the heat. But now, as I've gotten older, I've learned to put a pretty solid line in the sand. If you come up to me and you're aggressive in any sort of way, I'll just stop the music and walk out. And that's taken years for me to get to that place of I'm not sure what it is, confidence to be able to do that, or self-respect within myself. I have a pretty solid boundary now of how people treat me, because unfortunately, when you are dealing in an industry like a nightclub or anything with these things that are around, people are unpredictable. Most people, especially in private situations, are nice, but there's certainly been some people, even within the last year, that have been terrible people. And you just have to say, no, I'm not playing anymore and walk out. And that's been, it can be tricky because, you're dealing with aggressive people, but you just have to rely on the staff around you and security and make sure you have strong boundaries, because otherwise you can get yourself into trouble for sure.
Yeah. And I think, like you touched on, people are drinking, people potentially taking drugs as well. You can potentially see the best of people, but also the worst side of people
Oh,
come out.
absolutely. It's like as a DJ, you're at somebody's wedding, let's for instance, and that's the best day of their life. And when they look back on their life, you'll be a part of that day in some capacity. I gave you a dance floor where you dance with your nan, and that's now a core memory, and she's gone. You're with people where you're at the best point of their life, and it's never lost on me that weddings have such importance. Um, so it's funny that you have sort of such highs like that, but then also you're at nightclubs and people are heartbroken and they're going out and they're getting absolutely off chops just to cover their pain, and you see people at the worst, and you got to try and help them. And it's sometimes you're a counselor, you're sitting with them and you're being like, you okay, do you want a water, come sit with me? And sometimes people don't feel safe in a club, so they're like, come with me, you can hide behind the DJ decks if you want some, like a boundary or somewhere safe to play. So there's a lot of darkness, but that's the sort of thing about being a DJ. It's like you see the best and you see the worst.
And you're probably looking at it from such a different lens as everyone else in the club who's there to party and who's there to, dance and have a great time, or at the wedding or at the event. And you're sort of like just the bird's eye view of it.
Bird's eye
See what goes
view.
on.
And like actually having this conversation with my friend about weddings, it's like it's so great to be a wedding guest as a DJ, because it's a totally different feel from performing at a wedding or playing at a wedding than being a guest. Because when you're a guest, you lose, you're here there to have a good time, free drinks, and have a dance. But as a DJ, you're like on clock and you're watching the whole room and you're seeing the dynamic, and you do get a feel of what's going on in the room. So yeah, it's just a total different mindset being the DJ.
It's funny, when we were in Fiji, we were sort of talking about misconceptions. Like people think that I do this, or people think this about the industry, or people think. So I want to touch on that. I want to share with people today, like when people say, "Oh, when you hear you're a DJ and you work in clubs," what are some of the common misconceptions that people might think about you, or even the industry and working in the industry as a female DJ?
That I'm a party girl. That would be the number one misconception, I think. And I am very social. I think you have to be a DJ, but I'm not a party girl per se. I don't enjoy drinking in excess and doing all that sort of stuff. I mean, I certainly did when I was younger, but I'm older now, and I'm more about the health and fitness world. So I think a lot of people just assume that you're always up for a party and always up to drink and always up for a good time. And, you know, a lot of the times I don't drink at the gigs. So that's a massive, and then you can also attract the wrong type of guys as well from that, you know, especially in the dating scene. People think that you're a party girl, so you want to be dating a certain type of guy, and that's not true. I want the quiet nerd, not the guy, the guy, you know.
I love that. Well, there you go, guys. If you're a quiet nerd, reach out to DJ Claire Elliott, because that's a jam.
Do not come to me if you're a party boy. I do not want it. So, you know, that's a misconception too, that I'm a party girl for sure.
Yeah, I love this side of you. I love that, you know, and I really started to see a glimpse of it when we were chatting and you were DJing in Fiji. It's like there's this beautiful, like wholesome woman behind the decks who's also able to just create the best party atmosphere and just rocking it in what she's doing. And it's so cool to see both sides of you. What's it like as a woman? So we talked about this early on in the conversation, as a woman carving their way in this industry and becoming one of the leaders, I suppose, and sort of knocking the guys out of the way and being on par with them, being able to get the gigs that the male DJs get, and being able to rock the crowd just as hard as they would.
Yeah, it's been a journey, to be honest, because when I first started in 2007, female DJs were just sort of breaking through. Havana Brown was just kind of sort of coming through at that time too. And we just weren't taken seriously. And it was not like, if I was to go to a nightclub in Melbourne, they'll be like, "I will put you on a girls' night," you know,
or an early set.
Early set, or a girls, pretty not even an early set. It would just be like, "We'll put you on when it's a female only DJ night."
Wow.
Yeah, wow. And then there was other clubs that kind of helped to break that through. And I think, you know, I've got to give ups to Nick Russian, who owned Eve nightclub at the time, if you remember Eve. And there was also a club called Baroque in the city, which I think Adam Edwards was running at the point. And they really gave me the first shots as well. And they put me on prime time, and they really believed in me. So I have to always give them recognition, because, you know, it was such a boy club at the start, and you didn't get much respect, and people didn't really respect you. They just totally wrote you off. And it's only over years that you've got now get a bit of respect from people in the club, but still exists. And I think people just assume that you get gigs just because of the way you look, and they totally write off that you might have talent. It's just purely based on how you look. But I've always said that doesn't really stand, because you will get booked once on the way you look, but if you suck and you can't make a dance floor move, and you can't create a fun atmosphere, then you'll never get booked again. So it has to be more than looks at the end of the day. I think it's you know, it's talent. Looks is a part of it for sure, and, you know, and also drive and discipline, and keep on practicing your skill. And that's one thing I've always done, is I've always kept on upping my game in terms of DJing. And I've gone back to vinyl recently. I'm now practicing vinyl and going back to that, which is the hardest thing to do as a DJ, and keeping my skills fresh. And then hopefully my talent will always shine through, but still a thing that I face, unfortunately.
Going back to vinyls, that must have been a big decision. And I suppose it gives you a bit of an edge as well, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It's purely just to test my ear, because there's certain things in every industry which is like the apex, the hardest thing to do. And playing on vinyls is definitely that, especially disco music, which is what I specialize in. It is the hardest thing, other than maybe jazz. But so to be able to nail that and perform that is, you can't deny someone's talent if they're doing that. So
yeah, and probably much harder gig than pressing electro buttons. And
totally 100%, because you can nowadays, with the modern consoles, you can just press sync and it will do it all for you, which many people do. But, you know, there is no syncing on vinyl. Like, you have to use your ear. There's no WAV files. You can't visually see anything. You purely just have to go off what you hear. And that's what makes it
old school. That's old school shit. Right. Exactly how I grew up in the clubs. So
right.
Look, so I want to know with your career, are you one of those goal setters, or have you just sort of followed the path as like one step at a time? I know you were given a bit of a green light with Nick Russian and the team at Eve, which is super cool, and they believed in you and gave you opportunity. But has it been like a game for you where you've almost gone, this is where I want to be, and I know where I want to end up, and or has it just sort of easily flowed for you, next step, next step, next step? Because I think it's important to note for people, like even if it's not in DJing or being their career, it's like knowing the path that you have taken to visualize where you want to end up is super interesting to me, and I think a lot of other people listening.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of had ebbs and flows, to be honest. When I first started, I was very, very driven. I've always been a driven person, and I was excited about the industry, and I kind of had progression of where I wanted to go. But like any career, you hit walls and obstacles, and sometimes you lose a little bit of momentum and faith. And I've certainly had that in my career. But as I've gotten older, I've learnt to listen to my gut more and go with my gut and my heart, and what if I don't like something, then learn to block out things. And I suppose it's not a goal as much, but it's learning to, I do have goals of what I want to do. I've always had like, yeah, to backpedal, I have always had goals. Like I wanted to do more things in Melbourne. I wanted to reach out and do bigger things with agencies. So I reached out to different agencies instead of being with one. From that, I wanted to work around Australia. So over years, I started doing a lot more work around Australia. And now I'm in Sydney and I want to do more work around the world. And now in the last couple of years, I'm doing more work around the world. So I always had to have that. But for me, that was the bigger umbrella goal. It was more working on my own personal development to be able to get there, like not working for people that I don't see myself aligned with. And then by not wasting energy on that, I can go towards what I really purposely want to play for and what I want to do. Saying no to particular gigs that I don't see myself adding value to. And then, upping my rate a little bit more, not because of ego, but because it weans a lot of people out. So when people really want me, they can, come to me, and then I've got more time to create and focus on my goals. It's been more that type of personal development, so I can go from, and that's kind of a little bit what you have to do within the creative industry, because it's not like a corporate job where there's a goal there and you can just work your way up the ladder and you can go for it. Like being successful on a global level in acting, modeling, musicians, it's subjective, and there's no ladder per se to climb to get to the top. Like you just have to keep on developing your skill, weed out what you want to do and what you're in line with, and hopefully you'll just have you'll look back and you'll see there was a path that you made. But it's a little bit different to other jobs where you can kind of visualize, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And I love that you've taken the approach to going, you know what, I'm going to know, learn, understand exactly who I am, learn my beliefs, learn my values, and just not waver from those when something comes up, and something potentially could be paying a lot of money, but you're like, you know what, actually no, because this doesn't align to who I am. So the big X sign comes up and you feel good about that, don't you?
Yeah. And I think there's something cosmically, I mean, this is my spirituality coming through, but cosmically, I think when you say no to things that you don't align with, and you're like, I'm not going to add any value to this, if you're brave enough to say no, then something better will always come along, which was in line with you, because you've made space for that. And I feel like where I've gone wrong in the past, but learnt from it, was I was doing a lot of gigs and things for people that I shouldn't have been doing. And when I started saying no to that, the better things started coming in, which I was more aligned with. So I wish I did that a bit sooner, but at the same time, life's a learning curve. If I didn't learn that lesson, I wouldn't be here now. But yeah, that would be my biggest advice to anyone. It's like, listen to your gut. And if something's not serving you and you feel like you're stuck and it's Groundhog Day, then just, you need to pivot and say no and just stick with what you want.
100%. Now, personal development is my jam, as right? Tell me about how that realization that you wanted to work on yourself sort of came through. Was there a moment that shifted the trajectory of what was going to happen next, that really
pivoted you in that direction of learning who you were more?
Yeah, I think it was during COVID times. I was in Melbourne and I moved to Sydney, and I just had a time to sit and reflect for the first time, because I think I was just going through the motions a lot, and I was doing a lot of things, but I'm like, that's what is it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting the same results. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting, because I am doing the same things. I'm not particularly happy with where I am. So I need to change my mindset. And I also need to ask myself, why do I accept these gigs, and why do I let people take advantage of me? And I think there was other personal things happening in my life at the same time, like relationships going pretty sour with, boyfriends and everything, which all tied in at the same time to make my self-worth go up higher. Like, it was like, you know what, I do deserve this. I have worked so hard. I deserve to be treated better. And that was across the board, in personal and professional. So once I learned that lesson, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm allowed to say no. I'm not someone's slave. I work for myself. I have been, had some fantastic relationships with agencies, but I've also been used by a lot of agencies as well. So just putting up boundaries and saying, no, I won't be tolerated. And that's through the journey of self-worth, I think, because I was doing a lot of gigs just because I think my self-worth was low. But that's, yeah.
What are some things that you did that helped you tap into that deeper version of yourself?
I think saying no a lot. I was always a chronic yes person. So I would just say yes to everything. I never wanted to let anyone down.
People pleasing.
Would you do extra for 30 minutes and, not be charged? And I'd be like, sure, And I think that kept me in good stead with a lot of people. And at the start, I was willing to do that because I had to prove something. And I was like, well, sure, I'll do that. But now, after 17 years, come on, I don't have to do that anymore. But when you start to put up boundaries and start to say, well, I want this rate and I want that, sometimes you can be seen as a diva by some people. But I think the people who label you as that are the people who are treating you badly to start with. Because if anyone really loves you and understands your worth and goes, 17 years, Claire, I've known you and you've been working for me, you do deserve that. Where if someone was to not say that, then I'm like, you like the former version of me because that was better for you. So you kind of work out people's intentions. And that's hard thing about the entertainment industry, is because there's a lot of that in here. Like, people will get the best of you for the least amount of money. And that's not just with DJing, that's with singers, that's with models, that's with actors. So you've got to really know your worth and stand your ground.
Do you feel like because I've been in the entertainment industry as well, and I know for me it felt very competitive, and everyone's sort of vying for the same gig, and I didn't enjoy that feeling at all. I felt icky around that feeling. Yeah. Does it have a lot of the same type of feeling within the DJ world as well?
Yeah, it does. It's interesting because there's sort of two types of categories. I think there is the crew that all support each other and all want us, we share gigs, and majority, I'd say 80% was in that category, where it's not so competitive. It's actually a communal, it's a communal thing that we all love and support each other. But then there is also some competitiveness, healthy competitive things, I think, sometimes, where it's like, yeah, I'm in competition with you, but I wish you the best of luck. And then there is a few people who are just in competition with you and don't wish you the best of luck. And I think that's with any industry, but you just got to block them out.
You can feel that energy. There's this saying that I've posted a few times, like, you can't compete with me because I want you to win too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the type of energy I like to be around. He's like, everyone lifts each other up. We all can win. There's enough to go around. Life is abundant.
Exactly. And we all offer such different things. And music and DJing it's like art in a way. You can't, like, if you're a sculptor or a painter, can't compete with somebody else, because that art is subjective. People are going to come around and look at your artwork and go, I love that. I resonate with that. I want it for my home. where DJing is a little bit like that as well. The way that you mix music, the music that you play, your personal ID, your style, the way you look, the way that if you're flamboyant on stage or if you're a little bit more reserved, that's your personal ID, and people will be attracted to you on that whole package. So it's hard to compete, because it's like, even though we're playing similar styles of music, we've all got totally different energies and totally different way of mixing. So it's like, really, people are just going to be drawn to who they like more, and that's totally fine.
And if you're being authentic, then they're drawn to your authenticity, and you can't replicate that. So it just strikes out the competition.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Have you had mentors, both professionally and also personally, that have, well, professionally, I'd love to hear who your musical mentors are, but I'd also really love to hear about your personal mentors and helping you sort of build that mindset, that strong mindset that's taken you into building a strong career pathway as well.
Yeah, there's been at the start that Kevin, who I said, who was the guy who sort of gave me my first shot at a nightclub when I was 17, he was my first mentor.
On your Kevin.
Yeah, I went on you, Kevin. He's a legend. And I won't say his age, but he'd had maybe 30 or 40 years behind his belt of DJing then. So it was like a gold mine of knowledge to sort of dig into. And I will forever be grateful for him. And that was the start of my journey. And then Nick Rutherford, I think, who owns Rutherford Entertainment in Melbourne, he was a huge mentor for me as well. And Jack Newman as well. And then it's gone onwards. Like from there onwards, there's been different people over the years, and not necessarily in DJing. Like I've looked at, personal health people, and they've been a mentor, because it's been like the music side, I'm always studying and learning, but that personal development sort of side has really helped with that, as well, as we've sort of touched on. So I've had mentors in that as well. But personally, it's actually my best friend, Hayley. She's probably been the most valuable person to me, because she's always had fairly high self-worth, which was always interesting to me for someone who didn't have it. And she was always like, you got to believe in yourself. And she really helped to shape that narrative in my brain, which I didn't have in the early years. So she's easily been probably one of my greatest influences and mentors in that, even though we're best friends. And it's I'd probably say she was the greatest.
Oh, she would love to hear that. Does she know that that's how you feel about her?
Yeah, we're very open and honest with that sort of stuff. I've always been, we communicate, like we talk every day and everything, and we've always been open about how our friendship is and everything. So, I mean, she'll love to hear it as well. I'll send her this link and I'll be like, you might get a mention, but yeah.
Let's talk about self-worth, because I find it so interesting. And, looking at you from the outside, you're absolutely so beautiful. You're so talented. You're tall. You've got everything. You've got this beautiful personality. You're strong. You're kind. Like I feel like you've literally got everything going for you. But then, in your internal narrative, maybe not now, but back then, you had low self-worth. And for people who are dealing with that themselves and going, oh, it's because I'm this certain way or that certain way, low self-worth can literally hit anyone.
Yeah, it can. And it's so hard, because we're in an industry now, and not even if you're in the entertainment industry, I just think being a female or being a human on planet Earth now, we're just all, the perfectionism bar is at an all-time high. You have to be this, you have to look like that, you're never good enough. And I think that's the thing in our industry that's only exacerbated. Like you have to be the perfect size, you have to be the perfect face, you have to be perfect at everything, and it's subliminally said to you in every way. And over the years, that really played on me a lot. But I suppose having a mentor like Hayley's always believed in herself, and other people around me as well try to bring me up. But something I've learned about self-worth is people can tell you how beautiful you are or how great you are all day, but it's something that you have to learn. You have to believe in yourself. And I think the way that you get there is, this quote that I love. It's competence makes confidence, which is like when you get out there and you start doing really hard things in life, and you're traveling around the world by yourself, and putting yourself in these out of your comfort zone boxes and doing gigs which are difficult, you start to get confidence in yourself, and you start to believe in yourself, like, I can do hard things, I am worth it, I have done this really insanely hard gig, which the brief was crazy, and I did it. And over the years, that built up into confidence. Now it's like, you can't take that away from me, because it's not words, it's lived experience that I've had. And I think that's been the greatest asset to me, is sort of really getting outside my comfort zone and proving to myself that I can do these things. And then, that's something that no one can take from me.
Yeah, it's so true. And this theme comes up a lot on this podcast, is that cushy comfort zone, and it just sucks to push out of it, because it really is truly painful to push out of that. But then the joy that's on the other end, and I know it from myself being a speaker, like the idea of speaking in front of a crowd when I was younger was the very last thing I wanted to do. I felt like I wanted to do it, but the idea of doing it scared the hell out of me.
Reality of it.
People say to me all the time, and I'm emceeing a lot now and hosting a lot of different events, and they're like, do you get nervous? And I said, I actually don't at all anymore. And I never ever thought that would ever be possible.
Yep.
Because ask my mum, I used to hide behind people as a kid, even up to like my late teens. I was like, don't look at me. But I had a desire to be on stage. It was weird. It's like, I'm introverted, extrovert. I still can't work out what I am. But what I want to get across to everyone, and what you've obviously gotten across, is that you can break down those barriers, and you can actually teach yourself through repetition to drop all of those unwanted emotions around this.
Yes, and it comes from doing hard things often. Like, I honestly think that that's the secret to life and to growth and to success, is putting yourself out there, breaking through the comfort zone as much as it sucks, and just doing it all the time. And over the years, you'll build up a confidence in yourself that's unshakable. Because now if someone comes along and says, I don't like you, you're not a good DJ, you suck. Well, okay, that's your opinion, but I've done all these things in my life that, have shown me that I am good at something. I've done all these hard things and I've been successful at them. So I've got something to give the world. So, and people can't take that away from you. It's like you said, you don't get nervous anymore from being on stage, but that's just because you've done it so many times. You're now confident in your abilities, and you've got something to share.
That's so true. And that self-confidence builds up over time. I want to know that inner narrative that you had, just for example, when I think you were booked for the Logies after party recently, and you're probably playing to all of the well-known Australian celebrities and producers and directors and all of the media world under one roof, having a good old time. Walking into that environment, what's the inner voice for you these days?
Well, it is like, let's just saying, head down, concentrate, don't get, caught up in because, the Logies is one of the best gigs that you can do in Australia. And there's a lot of famous faces and a lot of powerful people in that room. And if you let that get into your head, and you can psych yourself out for sure. But at the end of the day, this is a room full of people who just want to celebrate their jobs. And, you've got everyone from starting at 18 all the way up to 80. It's kind of like a normal corporate in a way, but just heightened to the highest degree. And you just got to do your job to the best of your ability, and that's why they've booked you. So it's kind of taking because sometimes if you get caught up in the who's who of it, then you make bad decisions and you're a bit rushed and you're a bit scrambled. But if you just focus and be like, right, this is just, do what you do, then that, it will usually be a good gig. And it was a great gig. It was a fun gig. But you've got to back yourself.
Back yourself. I love that. What are some of your pet peeves? Like, how do you deal with people coming up and giving you ridiculous song requests and having to say yes or no? Because I've seen you in action there, and you're like, oh, if it's a private party, you do. If it's, you'd probably deal with it in different situations with different scenarios, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes a person will come up to you and it's the perfect fit and it's the right thing to play. And you're like, yep, absolutely, I'll play it. Other times it's not. And then I'll be like, I'll try my best, but, I don't play it. But I think the rules with DJing and requests is a lot of DJs say, no, I'm not that girl. You're more than welcome to come up and request a song. But, if I can't put it in the set and it's not working, then you're just going to have to trust that I can't put it in the set, and it's just sometimes when people come up and ask 5 or 6 or 7 times for the song, and it's just like, I've already said, I'm sorry, I can't get it for you. But they're pushing, it's just like, it's not going to happen. And
So
some of these,
what would happen if Carl Stefanovic came up and asked for the nut push?
Well,
sorry, no. Boundaries, Carl, boundaries.
I would say yes, actually, just for a laugh. I'd love to see the nut bush, actually. But yeah, there's just some, like, people come up and ask for like techno or trance or something at a wedding, and it's like a hectic site, and it's just like, I don't mind playing some sort of hardcore, like harder house, but there's certain songs and certain things, or screamo metal music or whatever. It's just like, this is not going to work. And it doesn't even have to be that extreme. Sometimes it's just like a rare song or a B-side, and it's just, people are not going to really like it. So
yeah, fair.
In the greater good of the dance floor, you don't play it.
Yeah, no nut bush just yet. So what's your dream gig, would you say? What would be that like ideal, absolutely, oh my gosh, gig for you?
It has to be a fashiony gig, I think, like a Met Ball-esque thing, or a runway gig in like Paris or something like that. I mean, that would be like the highest. I mean, it's also the hardest thing to do. That's really dreaming. But you got to set your sights high. Other than that, I mean, I'd like to just do gigs. I mean, for me, maybe a lower goal and a more achievable goal would be playing like on vinyls, playing authentic disco house in New York or something like that. I think that would be a goal of mine and something that I'd love to do, because that's in line with what I want to do and where I'm going. And just to play in a place like that who really understands disco, and that's the hub of it really, with Studio 54 and all those sort of things. That would be a real privilege to play there. So maybe.
Oh, I love that you answered with the big goal first. So whoever's like booking the DJ for the gala, if you are listening, please give this girl her dream.
Yes,
Anna Wintour. So great. Hey,
Anna Wintour.
Exactly. It's so great to verbalize the big dreams though, because it's not actually unrealistic when you say it out loud. And on the pathway that you're on, why not? Why not you? Why not now?
You never know what could happen. You never know what could happen. And there's certain, you just never know. So you always throw it out there, but you just,
It's funny because I'm like so into manifestation at the moment. And just before our call, actually, I put in my notes the upcoming guests that I will be interviewing. And I've got like a list of like, these are really fuck off names that have inspired me. And I don't know how I'm going to find them, but they're pretty cool. Like Will Smith, Jim Carrey, Joe Dispenza, Richard Branson. There's some good ones in there if you guys are listening.
Same people.
But why not? Why not me? Why not this show? Why not?
Why not? I mean, if you're putting your head down, you're working hard, and you've got value to give, and you're on a trajectory, then why not? Like, who knows what can happen?
Exactly. And it's that self-belief element too, and going, I do have enough kegs in the wheel now to
pull us
be
off.
Worthy of a fantastic conversation with those people. So why not?
Exactly.
All right. Met Gala for me, killer interviews. I Met Gala for you, killer interviews for me. Let's make this shit happen.
Let's do it, girl.
I love your energy. I want to end this conversation with, obviously, the topic of the podcast is things you can't unhear, so people can have those inspired aha moments. Or could it could be something that was said to you, or you read, or a comment that passed by that stuck with you. What was something in your life that you once heard that you couldn't unhear?
I don't know if it's got much to do with DJing, but it's just helped me with humans. And DJing is such a human connection job. And just in my own personal life. And it's like it's quite a common saying, but it's like people can only meet you at a depth in which they've met themselves. And I think that that's been one of my greatest things that's helped me in this life, because you have these expectations of people or agencies or jobs or relationships, and you're hoping, especially if you're somebody who works on themselves all the time, and you go out and you're traveling and you're pushing yourselves like we've talked about, and you're working on your skills, but not everyone does that, and you hold them to the same standard that you hold yourself to, then you're probably going to be let down in life. So I think it's just important to know who's in front of you when you're talking to them, know their life experience. And if they're not meeting you where you need to be met in a conversation, just take them for what they are there and go somewhere else and get your needs met for advice, mentorship. You find somebody who's on your level or above to give you that sort of, feedback, honest feedback in this life. Because sometimes you can waste time, and I say this with love, but talking to the wrong people. So I think finding people who are on your spiritual level, your intellectual level, your emotional intelligence level, and aligning yourself with those people are the people who help you grow. And one of the greatest things in this life is trying to identify who those people are. So I think that's been the crux of my personal development.
Yeah, that's super, super cool and super interesting. I love that. What would you say to someone if there's like a 13-year-old girl out there or guy listening to this, and they want to break into the music scene and become a leading world DJ just like you, or even just go hard for a big goal or dream of theirs? What would you say to them?
I would say start learning music knowledge. Music knowledge is everything. It's more than the technical side of it, for sure. Like, just start listening, getting Spotify lists, start going to 70s disco and listening to all that, and 80s, and listening, and just start understanding all genres of music. Because, there's so many different things with DJing. You can specialize in one thing and be a club DJ, or you can be a corporate events DJ. If you're a corporate events DJ, like I am predominantly, I still do clubs, but that means you need to know a variety of music, and you need to know it pretty thoroughly just to be able to know when to mix in and out. So start listening to music religiously, and different types of music that you might not have exposed yourself to. So every week you're listening to 80s or 70s or 90s or whatever, and then get some decks, some cheap decks, just find them wherever, and then start your transitions of how to fade in and fade out, or learn how to beat mix. And beat mixing takes time, but I would say don't cheat, don't cut corners, learn how to do it properly. Get a DJ course, go and find a DJ course somewhere and enroll yourself in it and learn how to beat mix properly. And that, with music knowledge, will be your gateway in. And the rest is just learn on the job.
And knocking on doors. Any advice on knocking on doors?
Yeah, I would just start. You got to be humble with DJing when you first start, like I did, working for not much, and just try and get as much experience as you can. Like, even if you go to a local bar and they have DJs, and they might not be a high flyer rate, but you can get a couple of sets there a week, or a one set there a week and one set there another week. Then you just sort of really hone your skill at these bars. Just start mixing all the time, playing different genres, see how people react to it. That's the best thing you can do. Practice on the job, like out playing to people, is the most valuable thing that you can do. So however you need to do it, just get yourself out there, and then you can build on the type of gigs you get, the quality and the rate can go from there. But from start, just start practicing out, not in your house, outside, because that's really where the pressure's on a little bit more, and you'll start to hone your skill really well.
I think anyone can take that advice, no matter what industries. Like, if you want to put yourself out there, if you're a musician, if you're a DJ, if you're a singer, you're a speaker, if you're a business owner, if you're a brand, whatever it is,
yes,
you have to put yourself out there.
Exactly.
And it's like building the data, building the experience blocks until you get to the point where you're like, oh, I've got this and I'm actually really good at it and I'm worth it.
A lot of people with DJing too, you can practice as much as at home, you can do it every single night, but it's very, very different to playing out in a club or in a bar or at an event, because you've got the external pressures, and you've got drunk people, as we talked about, and you've got fat people who are heaps of fun and in your face, and they're trying to talk to you while you're mixing. Like, there's a lot of variables flying at you, and you need to be able to deal with those. And at a low, what's the word? At a bar where there's not a lot of pressure, like they don't really mind if you mess up a mix now and then, and it's not the end of the world, you know. That's where you want to start. And then you can build your way up to clubs, which are premium clubs and bars around Melbourne, Sydney, wherever you are. And, you know, the pressure's on there not to mess up, but, you know, you can build yourself up to that point.
What do you love most about your job? What feeling do you love most about your job?
I think making people happy. That's the ultimate in this job. It's like it's a joyful job for the most part. People are out to have a good time, and you're the provider of the good time. So, you know, hands in the air, everyone's, you know, enjoying themselves. You're taking people out of their lives for a bit, which is obviously most people have stressful lives this, you know, in this, you know, climate that we're in. So it's like if you can take people out of that for a while and just have fun on a dance floor, and you've given that, that's sort of one of the best gifts you can give anyone. So I'm very lucky that I get to do that for a living.
Totally. You should have I make people happy on my business card. Very cool.
I should.
That's what I do. Thank you so much, DJ Claire Elliott, for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge in the DJ world, and also sharing a little bit about yourself that people might not have heard before. There's a whole, like I said, different element and side to you that is different to what people might see behind the decks. And I love that you shared it here today. So thank you so much. I'll pop your links in the show notes if anyone wants to book you, if the Met Gala wants to get into find you.
I'm Uncle Anna.
But yeah, I will definitely pop all of that information in. And you've got pretty active socials as well, and take us around the world with you on your gigs, which is so fun to see what you're up to next. So make sure, if you're listening, to follow Claire as well, and be part of the happiness vibes that she spreads out to the world.
Oh, thank you for having me. And yes, I'd love to see you all on my dance floor sometime soon.
See you on the D4. Thanks so much, Claire.
What? Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the show. What did you think? And what did you feel? Let us know by leaving me a message on the Things You Can't Unhear Instagram community page. And if you can, give us some ratings love on your favourite listening platform.